This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Eldorado Gaming. Eldorado Gaming is your site for gifts and gaming accessories like dice, playmats, and other items to bling out your games. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Find us on YouTube at Eldorado Gaming TX or our home site at eldoradogaming.com. Here at My Mythical Meta, we talk about gaming with friends and strangers, resolving conflicts, and keeping game nights fun, interesting, and recurring. Our game of choice is Magic the Gathering, but our hope is that what we share is relevant for board gamers, RPG groups, video gamers, and maybe even your poker night. I'm Travis, and with my brother Benjamin and my friends Derek and Randy, we've been playing Magic together since 2014. The secret to a healthy meta is not in the game you play, it's being good friends. Subscribe to My Mythical Meta, presented by Eldorado Gaming, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello everyone and welcome back to My Mythical Meta. I'm Benjamin, along with my friends Derek.
Hey.
And Randy.
Howdy.
And you may think, why is Benjamin doing all this? Where's Travis? Travis is not here today because he is on vacation with his wife and watching The Bachelor. So we miss Travis, but too bad.
Are you saying the show must go on?
That's what I meant to say. The show must go on. Yes. Today we're going to talk about a topic that actually I think all of us know a lot about, and I'm actually sad Travis can't be here because I know he's a big fan of doing this too, but today we're going to be talking about getting good. People are often told to get good when they complain or say, hey, that wasn't fun, or oh, I didn't know you could do that, and then the response is, well, get good, scrub, right? And we've addressed in other episodes ways that you can help newer or weaker players, or ways to create a welcoming environment where people can learn and grow and actually get better. But today we're not talking to the folks who are already good and are trying to introduce those newer players. Today we're actually going to talk about how a player can go about getting better at a game that interests them. Before I kind of get into the meat of this, do either of you have any experiences with people saying, man, just get good?
Oh my god, yes. I used to play like Halo multiplayer back in the day and Call of Duty.
League.
Yeah, League. How could I forget? And man, it just became so toxic. I'm like, I don't ever want to deal with this ever again.
What about you, Randy?
Yeah, so I mean, me and Derek played a lot of the similar games, especially in our formative years, high school and since. But yeah, I feel like League was a big one of like, get good should be League's like motto, like the little, League of Legends, get good.
Yeah.
Can we go back and we'll cut whatever I just said and I say, no, actually I've been good my whole life.
Nope, can't do that.
Nope, yeah, they're both going to be in there.
I'll talk to Travis. Don't worry about it.
Embarrassing.
This does seem to be a big problem for online games because my experience is actually with Magic Online. I consider Magic Online a great place to test new decks and try ideas and see if there's something there because the cards are cheap or practically free. You can get games in immediately, and if it turns out that the idea didn't work, you didn't spend time sleeving cards, ordering cards, it was all immediate. So I spent a lot of time testing, especially for Modern, on Magic Online, but you get a lot of tryhards on Magic Online who I guess are practicing for competitive Magic. I don't know. I didn't join competitive games, but you'd get a lot of, oh my goodness, why are you doing that? Just do better. Just get good. So yeah, it doesn't happen as much in real life, I feel like, although I do see every once in a while at an LGS, I feel like there's always that person who's just trying a little too hard, and they tell that to the people they're playing with that maybe have stumbled through a game. Just so we're all on the same page, I want to say that getting good is rarely constructive criticism. If you're the player out there that's telling people to get good, stop.
Cut it out. Stop it. Get help.
Exactly. That should not be our go-to response in pretty much any non-competitive situation. Now, I can think of an exception. I'll cover that in a second. But in episode 7, we talked about all the many reasons why people play games. Everyone likes to win, but that's very rarely the reason people play games. It's usually just a nice side effect, a perk of playing is that sometimes you get that high of winning. But most people play games to grow, to learn, to be with friends, to have fun, to relax. And honestly, if you're playing a game to have fun, it shouldn't be a job. You shouldn't have to grind, Something that Travis always said that really stuck with me is he plays games on easy mode so that they're fun.
Yeah, hit me with that story mode. I don't have time for suffering and having to learn complex and burdensome like crafting systems and stuff to get like the perfect, run or
Yeah,
whatever.
we're 30 now.
I'm playing with mods. I'm playing with mods on Baldur's Gate. My guy's got like 30 AC and like a 28 strength because of equipment and stuff like that. I don't care. I'm one-shotting everyone. I don't care.
I mean, are you having fun?
I'm having a ton of fun.
Just having fun. To me, that's like taking too much of the challenge out. If there's no thrill, if there's no danger, I guess.
For me, it's more about the story. I just want to experience the story because I've done it like 3 times now. I can't.
That's fair.
I can't suffer through these fights
That's
again.
fair. Okay.
Yeah, y'all just showed that y'all are playing Baldur's Gate for different reasons. One of you is just trying to figure out the story, the different ways you can go. It's so open-ended that you could play that character and just see, well, what happens if I just kill everybody I meet? What happens if I don't kill a single person, even the bad guy, right? And there's all these different ways you can play it, and that's fun even with all the mods and making it on easy mode, right? Whereas Randy wants the challenge, wants to beat things where he might die, right?
I mean, I'm also playing on easy, but I'm not playing modded currently. After a playthrough or two, I might get into Derek territory of, all right, let me put on the cheat code, God mode, and just blast my way through these people.
The perfect example of this from my own life is actually with The Sims.
My man.
When I used to play The Sims, like, it's fun to create, but I didn't want to have to grind for the money to put a piece of art in my living room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead and get the cheat code. My guy doesn't need to go to work. He can go downtown and do his thing and have the house he wants. I didn't want to send him off to work and have to grind through to get some money to buy the swimming pool I was going to kill him in later, right? Like, just make the swimming pool.
Yeah. Or if you wanted to take some kind of sim on a date or something like that, and suddenly you're like, guys, like, I'm about to pass out. I'm starving to death. I'm about to pee my pants. Don't worry about it, man. I've taken care of all your needs with mods and little console commands. Have a great time.
So basically, if you are playing to have fun, or if your friends are playing to have fun, don't expect them to grind all the time, right? A lot of games these days, grinding has become like a job. And if they're there to have fun, then maybe y'all aren't going to play with each other because you're not on the same level, but get good is just not what they want to do. Because it does sometimes take the grind. So for you play groups that maybe you have people of different power levels, things like that, please refer to our previous episodes. We've got several on why people play, how to teach your game, how to find people who want to play the same kind of game as you, and all of that. But this episode is specifically for the people who they've heard it, or they recognize that they are the weaker player or the newer player, and they just want to get good finally. They have that self-motivation that I actually want to be better. And we're going to talk about ways that people can up their game and get good. And I mentioned that there was a time when get good might be constructive, and that's this. If you have a play group that has an expectation of a certain power level, right? Maybe y'all are practicing for a Grand Prix or other tournament, or maybe you've assigned roles to a certain role-playing group where there's an expectation that one of the players is supposed to be an expert in a certain subject or something like that, and they haven't designed their character that way, or they haven't designed a deck that way, or they don't practice when the rest of you are practicing, and they start to make silly mistakes that are undermining what the group is there for, then yes, I think it's totally fine to tell them to get good, but to do it with I statements, to do it with the compliment sandwich, the things that we've talked about before, where you explain your frustration and suggest a way that they might change. Don't beat them to a pulp during practice and start trash talking them. But sometimes telling someone to get better at what they're doing is appropriate. Do y'all agree with that? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. So I wanted to start with some ways that we think people could up their game. And I want to start with you, Randy. What is something you think people can do if they want to get better?
His friends call him Randall.
No, they
if
don't.
you don't mind.
I have never once called him Randall.
Yeah.
Well, that's your answer right there.
I think it means that Benjamin's about to be higher up on the friend list than you, Derek.
Whoa.
Ooh. Anyway, practicing. I've mentioned before in an episode, I wasn't that experienced with Smash Brothers or one of those games on Switch. And so, playing with Derek and Travis, and they had grown up since GameCube. They had all that muscle memory and just, they knew things. They had to practice. So the only way for me to get good was to practice. And so I went and I bought the console and I bought the game and I got better. Maybe not good, but I was definitely better than I had been. I picked a couple characters and I sat down with another friend of mine who they don't know that I work with, and we would, I'm not saying we played games at work, but we played games at work. Yeah, he taught me, some tips and tricks. But then, I would go and take that and practice at home. So practicing definitely is a way to, help yourself get good. And that goes with kind of anything. Practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, whichever version of that you prefer.
Yeah, I totally agree that practicing is the main piece of advice that probably anyone could give. So I'm glad you mentioned that first. I think that no one ever gets better at something without doing it over and over. And you mentioned muscle memory, right? That's part of it for a game like that.
Yeah. I was say I'm definitely a learn by doing kind of person.
Yeah, same.
It's one of those things where I could go online and read about how this stuff is supposed to work and read on what the combos are, but I have to do it over and over and over again for it to really sink in for me.
Yeah. Would you say, Randy, that you are good at Magic?
No.
Would you?
But I think y'all would disagree. I think y'all would say I'm better than I think I am.
You don't give yourself enough credit.
And I think that you probably don't think you're good because you compare yourself to people who have been doing it longer than you. We have more practice.
Yeah.
Well, he and I started playing at the same time.
Well,
he could compare himself to me.
Yeah, but you care more than I do, Derek, about winning, especially.
I do love the feeling.
When y'all talk about times that you and Travis have gone to a local LGS and just mopped the floor with other folk, and, that happens because you've been playing for as long as you have, and you've learned your combos, you've learned how to deck build, you've learned when to appropriately respond to things. Or maybe you don't consistently beat us, although you do win an awful lot. Like you now have a good number of decks that are the boogeymen of our format.
Yeah, last weekend when you weren't there, I definitely...
He won twice out of 3 games. That's bigger than a 25% win rate.
I mean...
Oh, and I'm mad about it.
The very first game...
Guess who didn't win out of those 3 games?
The very first game, I definitely felt like I was channeling some Benjamin energy.
Nice, I approve of that.
Is that when you played Go Shintai?
Yeah, Go Shintai, and then, even when they miss it, but the first one, Go Shintai, it was just a lot of times, your decks will pop off, and they just, okay, I got an engine going. These things are all playing off of one another, and that's how my Go Shintai deck, it popped off pretty quick and pretty fast. At turn 6 or 7, I think. I want to say it was...
Yeah, it was real quick.
Like turn 7, it was all right, I'm swinging in for lethal on both of you.
Wow.
I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. Good job. See, and you got there because you practiced, you tweaked, you made that deck what it is now. And I have to admit, when you first made that deck, I didn't think it would be good.
I tell him that every single time. I was like, when you told me Shrines, I was like, what a garbage idea. What a waste of time and money. And that deck has beaten the hell out of me or gotten me real close every single game.
Mm-hmm. Good job, Randy. You've surprised us once again. I think you mentioned before the show started that you don't like to practice. I think you like to practice when you can surprise people.
That's fun.
That's the motivation you need.
He's the black horse of the group.
You mentioned just a little bit ago that you can read about it online all you want, but learning by doing is the thing that helps you. But
for me.
Right, for you. But I feel like that's perfect for the way that I tend to get better is by reading articles, reading on Reddit, watching YouTube channels for a good chunk of time. For the last 6 months or so, I spend most of my YouTube time listening to fantasy baseball podcasts because that's the season I'm in right now. Season's over in 4 days, and looks like I'm going to win.
Ooh, I'd love to hear it.
It's the same deal, though, right? I'm almost positive that the reason I'm winning this year and the reason that I've won, that I tend to finish towards the top every year, is because I devote a lot of time to reading articles, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube. I'm on our MLB, our fantasy baseball, right? Just listening to people give their opinions on how to play, and I do the same thing with Magic. There are several YouTubers that I watch whenever I just don't know what to do, and I see the way that they build their decks. I see the way they play. When I was big in Modern, I would watch people play Modern. For example, MTG Goldfish is one YouTube channel where he plays silly decks a lot of times, goofy decks. He's very rarely... this is Seth from MTG Goldfish. He very rarely plays top-tier decks, but he knows the meta so well that just by watching him, he says, oh, no, I think they have a counterspell, or oh, they're probably going to have a removal spell or something. And he knows those things so well, he gets to where when the other person plays a land, he can tell you what deck they're on and could probably name 50 of the 60 cards in their deck from memory. And so when you're watching him, you can see what lines he chooses to take and what decisions he makes and when he chooses to hold back and when he chooses to go. And those things, if you watch enough of those, you can internalize those even if you're not playing because he talks through his decisions. It's one of the things he's really good at. There are definitely some better players who play on YouTube or on Twitch, but he narrates his game so well that I can actually put him on like while I'm driving and not even watch, but just listen to the game and know exactly what's going on, and it helps me think through like, oh, which cards are good, which cards are bad, what's happening on the other side of the game. Anytime we start a new thing, I just spend so much time doing those things. Like we just started our mage game, and that's not even competitive. I just wanted to have fun. So I went to Reddit and I joined the White Wolf RPG subreddit, and I joined the Onyx Path message boards, where those are some of the people who I think have the rights to a lot of White Wolf products, and just started looking at all the different things and just really going all in on how am I going to have fun with this character? Because in order to get good, I needed to read up on it. Derek, I think you do something similar on this.
So I do a lot of the same stuff. You know, I find podcasts, I find YouTube videos, articles. For Magic, I'll use like EDH Rec. I'll go to Reddit. I think I've said it before. There are tons of people that are smarter than me. I'll never be the smartest person, and there's no way I can make every mistake in my lifetime. But it's important to be able to learn from other people's mistakes and be wise enough to, you know, when you're looking at all this stuff, you need to understand that yes, this person may be giving good advice, but it might not be pertinent to what you're building. Like if I'm building a deck and I want advice, someone say, "Oh, you need X, Y, or Z," but because our particular meta doesn't play towards that way, that's not necessarily good advice for this particular deck. You get this from practicing and understanding your meta and the things that you're putting into it.
Yeah, I totally agree that it is important that you take what you read or watch and metagame it, right? Make sure that it's appropriate for your meta, the type of games that people want to play, that sort of thing. A great example of this, I think we've mentioned on this show before how I have a Derivi deck and I like to tap things down, which is all well and good, but most people who play Derivi play it super hyper stacks, where they are trying to tap down the board completely. And I recognize that that's not really the game that y'all want to play or the way I want to play Derivi. So I've made it more of an untap my own stuff shenanigans rather than tap all y'all. Like I do tap defensively so that I can set up, but it's not like the primary game plan isn't to tap all your stuff. The primary game plan is to untap Mage Responder, you know, so I don't have to pay the 7 mana to do it or things like that. And so, yeah, that's great insight. And so if you're listening to this and you decide you're going to read things to get good, make sure that it's in line with your values, your paradigms, and the people that you want to play with.
Speaking of people you play with, you can learn a lot from watching the people you play with. Like if I'm sitting down with Randy, Travis, and Ben, I know what they do, what decks they have, and I'll never know how you guys think, but I can definitely infer what you guys may be thinking. And I guess this gives me a unique perspective because I play a lot of y'all's decks. So I can play it and I can see with my own hands and figure out like, oh, okay, so it's lacking in removal or it's lacking in whatever, but it's really strong here. And so I can take that information and apply it to my own deck building to make myself more formidable and ready for any threat. Like I know Randy loves life gain, so I'm going to put a lot of life gain hate in there. Can't gain life, or when you gain life, you lose life instead. Benjamin loves to play black, and black is all about sacrificing creatures, and that's been one of my biggest, I guess, hurdles to deal with, because the way I play is about one gigantic creature at a time or whatever, but if he's spending 3 mana to Fleshbag Marauder me, I'm losing that, and I've had to come a long way in that sense to combat that and get better. So now I put stuff that makes sure that Benjamin can't play with his graveyard or, you know, just get tons of value out of little weak creatures or something like that. Travis, he's kind of a wild card for me. He has so many decks that it's hard to know what's coming at any given time. So you got to kind of play loose and just kind of think that this might be a really tuned deck or this might be a Rube Goldberg machine that may or may not work.
Yeah. It almost feels like it's cheating. It's not cheating. It's actually good, and it's especially good if you maybe think that you'll never actually catch up to someone because they maybe have more opportunities to play than you do or have more time to read or watch YouTube videos or whatever the case may be. But metagaming in the way you've talked about is a wonderful way to at least give the illusion of getting good, right? And in fact, when a lot of people say get good online, they're talking about metagaming, especially in the Magic forums or REDH. They'll say play more removal, play more interaction.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're talking about preparing for the decks that me or Randy or Travis make, your decks are going to look better just by making a few card choices that are tuned for us. That's great.
Yes.
If you're out there trying to figure out how do I get good, this is probably one of the easiest ways to start, is to just make a few choices. This is not just in Magic. If you're playing chess, some openings are better or worse against some than others. So if you know that someone likes to start with the London opening, or this is one of my weaknesses, is I always try to go for the Scholar's Mate or some variation of the Scholar's Mate, especially when I'm playing with someone I don't know really well. And if you're set up to counter that play or put me in a weaker position as a result, I will probably lose to you often, right? If you know that somebody's playing certain strategy in Dota, you can counteract that. Basically any sort of game you can think of. Metagaming is a quick way to even the power level and kind of catch up to your friends and other people in your group.
Yeah, I mentioned thinking about you guys, but I also have to think about myself. And like you said, one of my weaknesses is playing this certain move. You have to be honest and self-aware to realize what you're bad at, so that way you know where to focus and practice on, or look for articles or some kind of information to help you get better in that area. Like I said, I play big creatures in Magic. They're cool, but they are easy to remove. And so having to work around that, because I don't want to change the big creature strategy. So I need to figure out how to fix that other ways. And so being able to kind of like see yourself through your opponent's eyes and what they may or not be feared. And like say, Randy's playing and he sees the things that I've added. He's like, oh, maybe I'm too reliant on life gain strategies. Maybe I should switch it up to keep them on their toes.
Yeah, right. The fact that y'all...
God bless you, Randy.
Well, me too, right? The fact that y'all started playing Rest in Peace and Silent Gravestone and Ground Seal has not stopped me from playing with Graveyard. It's just what I want to do. I'm going to keep doing it. And the best I can do is start adding maybe some enchantment removal to get rid of those things. But that means that because I'm not changing my core game plan, metagaming by adding those cards will always be effective against me in some way. Yeah, maybe I'll be able to remove your answers, but you'll at least have stalled me. You'll at least have done something to help your win percentage, because I'm not going to just stop using the graveyard.
Yeah, and it honestly kind of puts you at a disadvantage if you're not willing to change your strategies, which I don't think any of us are, because like if I'm trying to protect against removal, or Benjamin's trying to protect against graveyard hate, or Randy's protecting against life gain hate, we have to expend resources to deal with those threats that the other 2 or 3 people don't care about. So it's kind of like a 1v3 or 1v4, however many people you're with.
Yeah. Another interesting way that you can get good, and this is of course not for everybody, and won't always work for every game. So for example, it won't work for chess. But for a lot of the games that we play, Magic, Warhammer, any game with a lot of DLC, you can always spend money.
The best card in the game, Visa.
I mean, in a collectible game or a game where you're building your army yourself, that you don't start with the best pieces or the best cards, then if those things are available on the open market, you can go to eBay or TCG Player or Card Kingdom or your local gaming store and buy those things that will upgrade your deck or upgrade your army, then that means you will get better by spending the money to do those things. Now, I'm not telling y'all to go out and get a Black Lotus or that your commander deck has to have original duels, even though that would make most commander decks better. But I am saying that there are some key cards that do make every deck they're in better, right? Soul Ring goes in every deck, and it's a lot cheaper than it used to be, but it still costs a couple bucks, and you should go ahead and invest in a bunch of them if you're going to make a bunch of commander decks.
Yeah.
And so... just think about that. If you're going to play a mono black deck, you should probably have Necropotent.
Urborg.
Urborg. Yep.
Cabal Coffers.
Yeah? How do you know so much about black decks?
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Cabal Coffers plus Urborg is a staple of mono black decks. Or actually, even green black decks, because green can go fetch those for you and double your mana. That's a very common strategy, and it costs some money, but it will make your deck more competitive and therefore make you more competitive. So, like I said, that really depends. If your goal is to be competitive, that's one way to get good. I'm not encouraging you to make poor financial decisions. And really, if you are adverse to spending money, but you're playing a game like Commander, that might mean you need to stick to 1 or 2 decks only and just always upgrade those with the 1 or 2 new cards that come out. And you can have really top tier decks without spending a bunch of money. But if you're someone like Travis or me, you like to make a lot of decks and you want those decks to be good, then you'll end up needing to spend money on all of them. And so it depends on your goal, but if you just want to have one really good deck that's on par with your friends or the people at the LGS, spending money is one way to do that.
Yeah, and that's also a Session Zero discussion you can have where if someone's got maybe the original dual lands or something like that, these really good lands that this is pertaining to only to Magic right now, coming untapped versus, every land you're playing is a tap land. Like, hey guys, maybe you can tone it down. I can't compete with your budget.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, a lot of times when I see someone and they have those original dual lands and they're like, I'm 30, and if someone younger than me is sporting original dual lands, it's like, okay. This is $1,000+ deck I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Fun. And so I know to look for like this person spending $1,000 or more on their deck, so probably look for like turn 4 combos to just end the game.
I think having an expensive deck isn't necessarily a better deck, but more often than not, the good cards are expensive for a reason.
Yeah. You mentioned, hey, that's a Session Zero thing. This can also work in reverse, which is maybe the people who are playing with original duels and stuff like that would allow you to play with some proxies.
Yeah.
And
I never have a problem with them when doing proxy. Unless, if like half your deck as a proxy, then it's like, I don't know. I guess it is just a game, but it's like, if you're proxying like $1,000 worth of stuff
right
in your deck, and it's like, why don't you just, instead of trying to play a 10, just play a 6?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to the Session Zero thing where really the friends should all decide on what kind of power level they want to play. I don't want y'all to proxy cards that now you're stomping me every game, but I'm fine if you want to proxy cards to make your next deck the same power level as the rest of ours. You don't have a 6th copy of
Doubling Season.
If you're making an elf deck and you need a Cavern of Souls, fine, right? Like, I'm fine if you proxy that. So just depends.
I just can't justify buying another $20 breeding pool when I've already bought like 4 of them because I love playing green blue. So cut the corners where you can. In my opinion.
Yeah.
I think one area, again, Magic specific, an area that it's like, if you're going to invest a little bit of money, lands, but you don't have to do like the dual lands, like the $5 to $20, what was it called, that two-headed giant set?
Oh, Battle Bond?
Battle Bond?
Yeah, those Battle Bond lands, those $5 to $20 lands are pretty good. They're a lot better than like the jank you get.
Yeah, they're not glamorous to get and like spend money on, but they will make your decks do better.
Yeah, just coming in untapped, having two or three different colors to use. I think those are like a good upgrade.
Yeah. Derek, you had mentioned that this is getting kind of Magic specific, but it's not just about Magic. I'm sitting here looking at Warhammer figures that can go for $2,000 or more.
Yeah, I just meant about the
Right,
lands.
yeah.
I mean, it could apply to, Smash Brothers, League of Legends. I used to play a game called Marvel Strike Force where they'd come out with a new character like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and it would be the new strongest character, and there's no way to get it unless you pay money.
Yeah.
And then, after they've milked it for all they can, they start releasing it to all the free-to-play players, like maybe like a month or 2 down the road.
Yep, Gundam Battle was like that, and I think we've mentioned a couple times that I was the #1 player in the world a couple times on that game, but it certainly wasn't cheap. Like, I wasn't every week buying the new hotness, but it was enough time that I wish I could undo it, because that's a lot of Magic cards I could have bought.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were never going to be a tier 1 competitor, an S tier competitor, if you weren't staying on top of whatever the new release was, right? That's true for Yu-Gi-Oh! Especially, and it's true in a lot of mobile games. If you want to be the top, you gotta pay for whatever power creep they just put out. And so if someone's telling you to get good, it could be because this is the hobby, this is the one they've chosen to spend their money in, and that's okay. Like, I'm not here to shame anybody for how you want to spend your money. You earned it. You use it to make yourself feel good. That's what it's for, right? But also, if that's not how you want to spend your money or how you're able to spend your money, then, as Derek said, Session Zero this and make sure everybody's on the same page for what you expect. And if you want to be on the same level as them, then budget for it, right? Be prepared to spend the money they're spending.
Or ask to borrow a comparable deck or something if they're willing to.
Yeah. Okay, before we started this episode, Randy, you found some interesting stuff on Fiverr that I think would fit in here. Tell us about that.
Another option if you're trying to get good is Fiverr is it's a website full of people offering their services. There's people that will coach you in whatever game it is you're trying to play. So you just basically go to Fiverr, Fiverr, and just type in the game and then coach, and search before this recording. There was like 10 different coaches for Magic. I'm sure it's probably the same for most games, especially like competitive FPS computer games especially. I know there's a ton of those kind of coaches. But yeah, just checking for coaching online, checking for coaching Reddit, or even just like I had a friend coach me just without, I knew him and I knew he was good. So I just asked him to coach me and he did. So you might be able to even get your friends in your play group to coach you. Have them take you step by step, kind of break down decisions with you. Kind of like our first, or not our first episode, but one of our early episodes discuss, coaching or teaching a game to a friend. So someone can do that for you, hopefully.
Yeah, if you're listening at home, that was episode 5, teaching your game. And if you have a friend that wants to help you, but maybe they're not good at it, you can refer them to that episode, and maybe they'll pick up some tips for how to teach you how to play better. I was shocked when you pointed out Fiverr. We were discussing this because getting a friend to help was what I had in mind as far as advice and coaching. But Fiverr is a great one. Finding people who are at least consider themselves expert and having them be able to go through their play and doing all that for a low hourly rate. If you have a friend that enjoys this game and maybe they're the ones telling you to get good, you say, hey, I know we all get together Friday nights to play Magic, but why don't we get together on a Tuesday and you help me get better? And then on Fridays, you can level up and actually be worthy competition for them. So, yeah, awesome.
I think just last week, I was talking to Ben and Travis. I wanted to make a token deck, and I was trying to get y'all's advice about what you think would be a better color combination.
Mm-hmm.
Was that
Yes.
last week? And I want to beat you guys, so I guess it kind of seems counterproductive to ask you what you think, but we're all friends. We all want each other to succeed. If Benjamin's like, man, I don't know how to get rid of all these big creatures you got, and I was like, well, X, Y, or Z. That's how I would do it if it was against me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think asking friends who know more, get their honest opinions.
That's really good. I'm glad you brought it to that because as a meta, having that environment where we feel free to ask each other for advice on how to beat them. Right? Because you could have totally responded when I said, hey, how do I get rid of all your big creatures? You could have said, well, get good. But instead you say, like, maybe some sacrifice effects. I don't have ways to protect my creatures from that. I'm like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
One more that I wanted to bring up is specializing. This is similar to metagaming, but it's more that you can find a strategy that you're comfortable in, that you enjoy, that maybe you just grok it, right? You kind of understand it intuitively. And the meta might ebb and flow, and sometimes it's the best strategy and sometimes it's not, but if you become really, really, really good at that one thing, you will win often. Maybe not too often, right? I'm not saying you're going to beat the expert, but oftentimes the experts are really good at most things, but not necessarily the best at any one thing. And if you're saying, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, but I'm going to be the best cleric in this game, and I'm going to know how to use healing spells offensively. I'm going to know how to time my prayers so that my deity comes and smites everyone around me, and I can time it by seeing when you're coming, or whatever the situation is. And you say, hey, I don't know how to play a bard, and I don't know how to play a rogue, and I don't know how to play a wizard, but I know how to play clerics, and I'm going to get good at that one thing. And no matter what the situation is, I'm playing a cleric because it's what I'm good at. And will that sometimes be the wrong role? Sure, but I'm good at it.
Randy and I have a friend that we've played D&D with before, and God bless him, he plays an elf wizard named Sylvanas every single time.
And
he knows the ins and outs.
Yeah, and it's like, man, wizards. You're thinking, yeah, there's like 15 different wizard subclasses. No, not for him. There's not. There's one wizard subclass.
Only evocation.
That's the only one. He plays the exact same character every game. But I love him. Love him anyway.
Yeah, I see it actually with all the YouTubers that I watch, where they will often, they're trying out all these different decks, and then they'll just say, well, I got to put in this pet card, and I got to put in this package that supports that pet card, and whatever. And so no matter what deck they're playing, they have 15 cards that are the same from deck to deck, and they don't seem aware that they're doing it, and it just happens. And then you might notice it with yourself. I know a lot of people who are like, hey, I always play aggro, or I always play grindy mid-range, right? That's me basically. And because it's what they're comfortable with, but they are good players because they play what they're comfortable with only. So when it's their turn to shine, they're going to win. And so same thing with y'all's friend playing their elf wizard. I never did get very good at Dota, but I had friends in college who would play constantly, and I only ever played when I played with them, but they were playing all the time, right? And so I don't even remember which character I decided I'm just always going to choose this character, and I'm going to figure out how to play it so that I don't let my team down. That one character, no matter what anyone else is playing, I'm going to figure out this character and do it. And that's how I got okay at Dota. And it wasn't even a top tier character. That way I knew no one else wanted them. It was somebody who was moderately good, and I could understand the strategy well enough to not die constantly.
Yeah, I mean, going in further, I never played Dota, but I played League of Legends, and their base map is 3 lanes, and each lane kind of has its own roles kind of assigned to it. It might be different now, but years ago, it was just there are 3 lanes, do what you want, but the meta was that a tank and an ADC would go bottom lane, some kind of mage or some kind of character like that has a lot of long range potential would go mid, and then some kind of like bulky bruiser type off tank would go top. And for me, I would always go top, and I would just keep going top until I got comfortable with it. And I never even got that good. But yeah, I think that's a big part of that game is, specializing, picking what kind of role you want to pick in that game and going from there.
Okay, so we've suggested several different ways that you can improve your game, and they don't all involve becoming as good an expert as your friends. So there is the grindy practice till you reach the level you want. Anybody can become an expert by grinding, but if you don't want to grind to get to where the other grinders got, you can read and watch online. That's sort of like grinding. It's just different, but I find it very entertaining, and you can get good by practicing or by reading and listening online. But you can also metagame to target the specific players in your meta so that maybe you don't get significantly better, but it's a more level playing field. You can spend the money to improve your deck, your army, or get the DLC characters you need and get better stats. You can get coaching or advice from folks, or you can specialize like we just talked about. Was there anything else that y'all thought of that people can use to get good?
I'm sure there are more, but nothing I can think of right now.
Randy?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Of course, if Travis has anything when he's listening to this he wants to add, he can pop in right now. Good points, Travis. Good points.
Awesome. Yeah,
nailed it.
I'm surprised you came in here at the end. Okay, and now it's time for
News from the Warfront.
Okay, this one comes from our EDH, and it's kind of a long one. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to paraphrase it. It's titled, "How do you politely speed up a game?" And this person talks about how they went to their local LGS, and there weren't a lot of people playing, but they found a group that looked like their game was about to end, and it was only 3 people, so them joining would be 4. And they asked if they could join the next game, and the people said yes. But then the game they were on ended up taking over an hour to finish, and it wasn't because it was a back and forth slugfest like EDH games can often be, but instead people were chatting, getting up to go do other things when it wasn't their turn, not planning their turns, hemming and hawing over decisions, basically just slogging through, just not being very intentional with their gameplay. And this player felt a little slighted, and eventually, after it looked like it was going to go on even longer, they scooped so he could play, but there wasn't really enough time for their next game, and they ended up having to pack it in after 6 turns of the next game. And so they ask, how can you politely ask people to speed up so that you can have more time to play and get more games in? I picked this one not because I have a clear answer, but really because I had the same question. And so I was hoping we could talk about it a little bit and figure out, how do we speed up a game or ask others to speed up when we think they're taking too long?
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially in his position. They don't sound like they were close friends, more just a random pod. And yeah, I don't know if there is a great way to just say like, hey, hurry up so I can join in. I mean, I think what they did was pretty considerate by scooping to begin with. I guess it's kind of like, it sounds like you and some of the people in that pod were there for different reasons. You showed up to get games in. They may have showed up to just chill and hang out with their friends.
Yeah, that's some good insight.
It's like that's just the roll of the dice that day. It was just bad luck, but that's something you know for the future when you see them. It's like, oh, they're not fast players like I want to play with. But I mean, beggars can't be choosers either.
Yeah. I also don't have super great or helpful news. I think you might just have to take the L in these kind of situations if you're playing with strangers. I don't think you want to necessarily burn your bridges by being impatient. Like, hey, can we put a timer on? Hey, what's the deal? What's the deal? Because eventually, if you keep doing that, people aren't going to want to play with you at all, and then you'll never play a game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's turn it around a little bit and ask, hey, y'all keep mentioning, hey, with strangers, let's take the L, or, maybe y'all came to play for different reasons, but what if it's not a stranger? What if it's a friend or someone in your play group that is consistently getting up to go grab snacks or go to the bathroom or whatever? As soon as their turn is over, they've got 3 untapped mana and 4 cards in hand and a trick on board, and they put down their card and say, okay, pass turn, and get up to go get chips and salsa or whatever. And this keeps happening, or it seems like as soon as their turn's over, they start playing with their phone, and then when it's their turn again, they go, okay, let me look around, or any number of situations that are making one of your friends take a long time. How do you deal with that?
I think, like, if they pass their turn, they have mana and cards up, and they leave the table. You leaving the table, in my mind, is like saying, I have no responses.
Okay.
And if you say, hold on, I need to use the restroom or I need a drink, but hold on. But if they're like, okay, I end my turn, and then they get up to go do something, they waive any right to come back and be like, oh, well, how to answer that? Well, I didn't know that. You left.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would probably create some bad feelings.
Yeah, so don't do that. If you have an answer and you think that you're going to be using it versus like, you kind of need to stay there or ask them to wait for you.
Yeah, if you're playing draw go control, you have to hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it together. I think we're all pretty good about this. If we have to run somewhere, I have to run real quick. I have responses if someone attacks me, or I have no responses for any situation.
Yeah, we usually
That's true.
discuss that if we leave.
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
that. That's true. We're like, I got a response if someone attacks me, and which often has the intended effect of, oh, I guess it's your turn when you get
No
back
one's gonna
because
attack.
no one attacked you.
Yeah, a little bit of metagaming thing
Mind
there in
games.
heads. I think, I don't know, I guess if it was becoming a constant problem, I would earnestly ask, can you please sit down and focus until this game's over, or scoop or something so we can get this game back on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we have to keep stopping every time it's your turn for X, Y, or Z, I am only human. I have the patience God gave me, and it wasn't that much. So,
What about the second scenario where it's, hey, every time your turn ends, you check your phone or whatever, and then when it's your turn, you're having to figure things out, all the things you could have been doing whenever it was not your turn. What about that situation?
I think if you mentally checked out and didn't do stuff, because I know we all get on our phones. Sometimes, a turn could take 40 minutes. I get it. I'm not going to begrudge anyone, but if someone is mentally checked out the whole time, they don't pop in to kind of update the information in their mind. Sorry, buddy, you checked out. I'm not going back. Get good, I guess.
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
say.
Well, it's not the checking out on someone else's turn. I'm more thinking, okay, it's your turn, and you pick up your cards, and you're like, okay, so what happened? You played 3 things? Oh, you played your commander and equipped it with some boots? Okay, now I'm going to draw my card. All right, let me look at my 5 cards and figure out what I'm going to do now that I've just spent 5 minutes figuring out what all just happened. Okay, let's see. Have I played a land yet? No? Yeah, okay. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that definitely snowballs into a situation where, you do that, and so then I'm so bored out of my mind, I get on my
Exactly.
phone and stop paying attention. I don't know. I think what I do is I would just, we talked about it last episode with I Always Get Targeted. Sorry, man, I am not having a good time with your presence here. You've got to go. So I'll try to knock them out first.
Okay, so you choose violence. Is there any time where, is there a polite way to talk to them about it? I don't know, but I mean, surely.
I mean, I'm sure there is if someone was more assertive than I am.
Travis isn't here, so we.
I'm more of a passive-aggressive person.
Travis isn't here, so we don't have to advocate for good communication now. That's him.
Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of the, like putting my hand down, looking at my phone, whatever, on other people's turns, and then on my turn, kind of like checking back in. I feel like I tried not to do that. If my hand is literally like, all right, that's the one thing I can do, or I have to wait to see what my top card is and then reassess my situation, because I got nothing in hand to deal with anything. It's kind of like, all right, well, I have nothing in hand to plan putting my hand down.
Right.
So I know I'm definitely guilty of that quite a bit.
Oh, we were all guilty of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
And I think Travis has, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus or anything like that, but I think he has gotten on to me before about
taking way too long.
Taking too long because I wasn't looking at my hand while it was their turns, And
Yeah.
I feel like I've gotten better at that. Hopefully, Travis, you can say yes or no right here. And
the narrator comes out. He didn't.
He didn't. He still does this, and I hate him to this day. So, yeah, it is tough to tell someone you're annoying me.
it really is.
Yeah, it's hard. I know he's supposed to do I feel blank or compliment sandwiches like that. It's hard. You don't want to hurt your friends' feelings, especially over something like ink on cardboard. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess if it happens all the time, every time your group gets together, I do think there is a place for saying, hey, we could get in an extra game every night if you would look at your card. If you want to hang out with us in a different capacity, let's talk about that, right? We can accommodate you. Maybe we don't have to play Magic all the time or whatever the game is that everybody's playing. But if it's every time and I'm missing out on a game every time we get together, I think it is good to bring it up and try to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I agree to that point.
It could be like a new session 0,
Yeah.
Updated 2.0. Just hey, now that we've been playing for a while, can we set up some new rules of when it's not your turn, try to do this as this. On your turn, you have untap, upkeep, draw. And then I think when it's not your turn, you should have plan, strategize, XYZ kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. What would y'all think? How in chess they time people. They have little timers that you have X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Then you click it, and then the opponent's turn or time starts ticking down. What if we set some kind of I don't know, timer, and not necessarily us, I'm just talking out loud here. If you set some kind of timer amongst friends of hey, you've got 5 minutes to figure your turn out, and we all have the same 5 minutes.
That'd be interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
one of those hourglasses from Taboo or something.
The only thing with
something that,
hourglasses though is it's everyone would have to have their own.
Yeah.
Because then if you keep flipping it,
Yeah.
then you're not getting the full.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think just do it on your phone or something like that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. The only thing is, there'd have to be exceptions for when other people are doing things on your turn. Maybe you pause it if someone else says, wait, I have a response or something. And then it gets really complicated.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Magic Online does it where it's literally...
There's a rope?
Well, that's
Fuse?
Magic Arena uses the rope. But
Okay.
Magic Online, it has literally a chess clock where every time you get priority, your clock starts ticking until you either put something on the stack or pass priority. And so everyone... In a typical game on Magic Online, both players get 25 minutes for a match. So that's all 3 games.
Oh.
And it stops counting during sideboarding, but you have a separate clock for sideboarding. And if you run out of time, you lose the match. And
Oh, okay, wow.
that does lead to a little bit of metagaming online where some people will start to see, oh, my opponent has a lot less time than me. I can make them time out by just passing priority to them real quick over and over. There has to be a lot of triggers and stuff, but you can intentionally just trigger extra triggers just to get them.
Some kind of bad faith type
Yeah.
stuff.
And so that's not, in highly competitive events, that's an issue. If you're playing casually on Magic Online, there aren't going to be a whole lot of people trying to get you to time out. It's impossible on Magic Arena. You can't time out. The worst case scenario is when your rope goes down, you pass priority automatically. And so if your rope burns down, I think 3 times in a row, you pass the turn automatically. I don't think you can actually lose the game from roping is what they call it. But I think you just keep passing your turn so that eventually the other person just gets a whole bunch of turns.
In the post, what the poster does, if I was one of the 3 people that was playing the game and someone was sitting down and started saying what this guy was doing, that would be you know what, maybe we don't want to play with you.
Yeah.
Because he's saying stuff so when people were taking out time, he would say, okay, are you going to attack? Do you have any more moves, or are you ending turn? And I'm like, if that was me and someone said that to me,
backseat driving the whole time.
oh man, I'm like, this isn't your game. You do this next game. But ooh, that would make me want to you know what? I'm gonna step out of this game until he's gone, or I'm good. I don't want to play with this guy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like that was incredibly rude, and then they were still nice and ended up scooping for him so they could bring him in for the next game. But I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I was going to say that the people that were actually playing the game probably could have been a little bit more considerate by paying attention, being deliberate with what they were doing, and making quick decisions. But you don't want to be the guy who thinks he's the main character and everyone's life is revolving around you, because that makes you the bad guy.
Good call.
And people don't want to play with that kind of person.
All right. Awesome. I think that's some good stuff for us to think about on the news from the Ward front. Anything else y'all want to add about getting people to hurry up or ways to get good before, I guess, am I doing the word of wisdom still? Seems weird to do it when I'm also the host.
Sorry to hear it, man.
Okay.
That's showbiz. Yeah. But I would say the easiest way to get good is to do what I did and just be born good.
Oh my God.
Came straight out of the hospital room, just winning all the time, and it's just been coming up Millhouse for me.
There you go.
Okay, Charlie Sheen.
Take it away, Benjamin.
All right.
Get us out of here.
Now our word of wisdom. So we've talked about getting good, and we talked about growing, and we've honestly given a lot of practical ways to get good at gaming and at life, right? If you want to become an engineer, you got to practice. You got to read. You got to think about what's going on in the engineering world. You probably got to spend a little money. You need to get a mentor, and most engineers are specialized, right? Everything we said about getting good at a game applies to getting good at jobs. It applies to self-improvement in relationship. There are things where I am not necessarily a great husband. I'm not very good at buying gifts for my wife, for example. But the only way I'm ever going to get better is to do the things we talked about, to practice. Maybe I start with some small gifts, or read about things that are potential gifts, or think about the sorts of things that she's gotten before and shown interest in. Spend money, ask her friends, right? Or get really good at a certain kind of gift so that, I can always give her a little trinket of a certain type that she starts collecting because, I was thinking of you when I saw this chicken.
My wife's been doing that. Every Christmas, she makes me a little toilet paper. It's like she uses a toilet paper roll and cuts it into different shapes, usually dinosaurs, but she did a fox last year, paints it and all that stuff. And now we've been together for 8. This will be our 9th Christmas together.
Oh, that's really sweet. So she specialized in a certain type of thing to get you, and it makes her seem like a really nice gift giver, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's become one of the things like, hey, I gotta get my little guy.
Yeah, that's cool. So with that as the backdrop, right, this is a great opportunity to look at anything you want to get good at. Do you want to improve your life, improve your relationships, improve your place in the world? Then resolve to do it once you've realized that this is something I want. Even if no one's told you to get good, you just want to be better. Then find ways to practice. Find ways to get advice from people who are good. Right? Get a mentor. Maybe spend a little money on getting better tools. Think about where you can find more information and seek out that information and improve your life. And just like it works for games, it'll work for you in any area that you apply it to. So I hope that you find this episode helpful for your gaming and helpful for improving your meta and getting everyone to an equal power level. And I hope that you can find this stuff generally applicable to self-improvement. If y'all don't have anything else, we did it. Another successful episode.
There we go.
It's one for the history
That's
books.
Right. We did it,
guys.
And now words of wisdom are back to normal. No more of your commie trash.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And you can cut that, Travis. No more of...
No, keep it. We got a union buster. Let him cook, guys.
No more going off the rails. We're back to actual words of wisdom here. Enjoy getting good. We'll see y'all next week. Bye.
Later.
See ya.
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.